In the last couple of weeks, there have been quite a few comments asking what that white case is in the background with the screen on it. It's an Inwin 303. I thought we'd been over that. Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff. We're going to mix it up a little bit today, as it was 95 degrees outside in June, so I'm having a mojito. Oh, that was a good choice. I certainly teased this thing enough in the background of my most recent videos, so let's finally dig into it. This is the iBUYPOWER Snowblind, and obviously the most dominating feature of the side of this case is the 17-inch LCD screen built into the tempered glass side panel, but we'll get into aesthetics in just a minute. A couple of weeks ago, during my GTX 1650 revisit, I mentioned I was starting to explore doing a high-end test bench to do a lot of my graphics benchmarking on, and well, I've actually been in talks with iBUYPOWER for the last couple of months, and they graciously agreed to send this rig over to be my new benchmarking system. So huge shout out to iBUYPOWER. As this is my new test bench system, there were no punches pulled when it came to the hardware. Inside of the Snowblind is an ASRock Z390 Phantom Gaming X4 motherboard alongside an Intel i9-9900K, which for the moment is still the best gaming CPU in the world. We'll circle around to that when AMD releases the 3950X. Alongside the CPU is 32GB of XPG DDR4 3200MHz memory and a 500GB M.2 NVMe drive, also from XPG. This one is the Gen 2 variety with 3200MB per second reads and writes. Game storage is going to be absolutely no problem with the Samsung Evo 2TB solid-state drive inside of here, and speaking of gaming, I'm hoping to do quite a bit of it, as we have a Gigabyte RTX 2080 inside of here, this one the all-white edition, and it is absolutely beautiful inside of this case. The power supply, I will admit, I did go a little bit crazy on, but I wanted more than enough power to run any graphics card solution I would ever want inside of this box, including some crazy configurations that I haven't even thought of yet. So I went with a Be Quiet 1200 watt 80 plus platinum unit. Again, a little bit overboard. Keeping the Snowblind cool is a 240mm AIO with the iBUYPOWER logo emblazoned in white on the front of it, as well as a trio of Corsair ML120 fans, also with white LEDs. One thing I really appreciate about the Snowblind is a lot of times when you get into these crazy custom cases from OEMs, they are insanely difficult to service. Not so with this, it's just off-the-shelf components. It's Corsair fan, a Gigabyte graphics card, an ASRock ATX motherboard, and to open the side panel, it's just these two latches on the front, and the whole door swings right open just like a standard ATX case. Right down here in one of the bottom PCIe slots is actually where the magic happens for the side panel of this case. That's where the graphics controller is at. And it really is my only nitpick of the internal layout of this case, as the cable management isn't as clean as it could be there. The rest of the internals are immaculately well done, and honestly, this is a showcase right out of the box. I would prefer to see that a little bit tidier if it was me. I'll probably mod that or maybe even sleeve it if I get the time. But other than that, phenomenal layout on the internals. The back side of the case is very well cable managed as well. Really no complaints. Very, very nice job. They used all the available grommets and tie downs that I would have used, and everything is very easily traceable and not just kind of bundled up and thrown in there. I'd give it a solid A. But all of that is not what you came to this video to see. You came to see this do something. So let's go ahead and do that. I've been teasing you long enough. So I mentioned down here on this little PCI bracket is the Magic Box, and that's actually the LCD controller that's built into this case. It has a DVI and a VGA input just as a standard monitor would, and the power is handled internally by the 1200 watt power supply. And I know it's probably a little bit difficult to see from the camera perspective right now, but this is just a standard PC monitor with the back torn off and backlit with a crap ton of LEDs inside the case. This is just a 17-inch LCD panel with a 1280 by 1024 resolution. It is rotated 90 degrees inside of the case, so your 1280 is actually right here and your 1024 is your width. Now from my perspective, I can see what's on the monitor, although it is still fairly difficult to see. This really isn't for using as a PC monitor, this is just for showing effects or some graphics overlays, which we'll get to. Honestly, this does very, very well with high contrast effects, so black against white or red against blue, things like that. As when the monitor gets darker, when the colors get darker, you can't see through the panel. When the color is lighter, you can see straight through it and you can see the internals behind it. So right now you can probably see this line pattern that's on there, and there actually is an iBUYPOWER logo in the center of this. This is just my desktop background, and there's a whole bunch of icons on the side, as well as the start bar that's right down there. Unfortunately, it's not a touch screen, so my dreams of having an LCARS panel are pretty thoroughly dashed. So with the system properly configured, you can do things like this, and this is where it gets really cool. White background and just very, very high contrast effects on top of it. So we've got the Intel logo, and fading in and out is the iBUYPOWER logo, as well as this this liquid ink smoke kind of effect. It also does a lot of different sunburst things. Very, very cool just to sit there and look at. This is actually among the best that it's looked on camera too. I'm really happy with this camera angle right now. It is very difficult to see on camera. When the effects are popping in person, they are very, very bright and very, very vivid. So what's playing right now is actually just an MP4. iBUYPOWER included, I think, 4 or 5 of them with this case, and they're just high contrast effects to really showcase the look of the Snowblind. So as you can see, even darker images with a little bit of lighter contrast work very, very well on here as well. This is one of my favorite called Lines, and it's kind of a Stargate-inspired design, and it goes through a whole bunch of different sci-fi effects. Very, very cool look and very eye-catching. So is that all this thing is for, just showing fancy effects? Well, yes and no at the same time, actually. Again, this is just an LCD panel, and in fact, it's got a display port out from the RTX 2080 connecting to the DVI in for the LCD screen here. So what you're seeing is my PC display. I did go ahead and create myself a custom background with my animated logo, and you've actually seen this in the background of my video here before. But I configured it in this orientation for a very specific reason, as there's another program that iBUYPOWER included with this that is much more practical. So on the screen right now, I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but I promise I'll lay some B-roll over the top, is a program called Rainmeter, and this is basically a system monitor tool for your side panel. Right now, I've got it set up to display CPU temperature and utilization, graphics card temperature, utilization, and VRAM usage, current network load, as well as current hard drive free space. And at a glance, this is some fantastic information to have on hand. Technically, the Rainmeter program is able to display MP4s in the background, so this should be a click it and forget it type setup. However, I do have a couple of issues with the program. Number one, all of my videos didn't play in the right orientation. That is, they kind of played in a letterbox format rather than in full screen. Also, every time the video looped, there was a couple of frames of black screen, which was kind of jarring if it's just out of the side of your vision. The way I'm getting around that in my setup right now is I'm opening an MP4 inside of Media Player Classic, putting that into full screen, and then running Rainmeter on top of that. Honestly, it works just fine. There's only a couple of clicks at startup to get this working and looking great, but I would like it to be a fully automated system that displays as soon as I log into the computer. Performance-wise, I haven't done a ton of testing with this rig. However, keep in mind, this is my new test bench, so you will be seeing this throughout the year, and so you're going to get a good idea of the metrics anyway. However, I will say right off the bat, the cooling performance is actually very impressive. The front of the case is very wide open and has a huge gap on the top and bottom, allowing full airflow into the 240mm AIO. The 9900K is running at 4.7 GHz and never went above 83 degrees Celsius in my brief stress testing that I did on it. Straight out of the box in Cinebench R15, the 9900K at 4.7 GHz did manage a 2068 multi-threaded score, which is pretty respectable. So I'm not sure how much overclocking I'm going to need to do on this box. Obviously, I'm going to try to push it just a little bit, but honestly, I'd rather keep the 83 degrees Celsius mark than try to push for that extra 5% and wind up running at 105 all the time. In the next couple of weeks, I am planning on doing a full benchmark run on this system. Not just with the RTX 2080, but I'm thinking with pretty much every graphics card that I own right now, just to kind of get them on the board. Let me know what games you want to see in that benchmark. I've got my standard 8 or 10 that I run, but let me know if there's something special that you guys want to see on that. Oh, and in case you're wondering how much light it takes to actually make this panel work, on a standard monitor, 90% of your light goes back and only 10% makes it out through the front of the panel. So if I open this right now, yeah, about that much. One other really cool feature of the Snowblind Element is you can actually turn the LCD lights off if you don't want to look at this. Say it's nighttime and you're gaming and you don't want the distraction of something in your eye. There's a little button right here on the back that turns off the backlight. Now, the screen itself is still on, so you don't have to disable it in your Windows display monitor, but you don't have to look at it anymore. So I know the question on everyone's mind is, what in the world does this thing actually cost? Well, my system as configured was about $3,450. Now remember, that was a balls to the wall build with a 9900K, an ASRock Z390 motherboard, an RTX 2080, way more storage than I needed for game installation, and a 1200 watt power supply that's just absurd for even 3 times the number of graphics cards that I had. But the Snowblind does start at actually $1199 for pre-built systems. That comes with an i5-9400F, a Z390 motherboard, 8GB of DDR4 3000 MHz memory, a GTX 1660 Ti, 240GB SSD, and a 1TB spinning drive. Honestly, it's maybe a little bit more expensive than your standard pre-built for about $1,200, but it's a pretty premium system and really not that much of a premium price tag on top of it. iBUYPOWER did send this over for me to take a look at, as well as use as my test bench system from now on. But honest opinion, I'm actually really impressed with number 1, the build quality, and number 2, the attention to detail in the build process itself. The case itself is made by NZXT, which incidentally is right next door to iBUYPOWER in City of Industry, California, for those who didn't know. But again, the attention to detail on the inside of the case, the cable management, the proper tie downs and zip ties, the right routing of the cables, everything about the system is just awesome. If you're interested in picking up a Snowblind system for yourself, I will have a link down in the video description below where you can build and customize your own system. That's not an affiliate link, by the way. You can just type in iBUYPOWER.com right up above. I just figured some of you were probably lazy. You can also buy pre-configured Snowblind units from Amazon, and I will have those affiliate links down in the video description below if you're interested in just picking up a pre-built unit. Also, if you're interested in picking up anything for your next build or upgrade, make sure to check out my Amazon store, also down in the video description, incidentally. And that is going to do it for me. Make sure to like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, and subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already. Also, stay tuned after the break if you want to see just a B-roll montage of the Snowblind. I didn't have room to put it in this video, and honestly, I just want to show off some of the sexy B-roll that I took of it. Thank you guys so much for watching this one. I hope the iBUYPOWER Snowblind case was worth the wait. Let me know if I didn't answer all of your questions about it down in the comments. I will do my best to answer those down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching this one, and I will see you in the next video. And hopefully it's a little bit cooler next time. Ah, lost my garnish. Can't have a mojito without a garnish. That's just sacrilege.